Let me tell you something about perfect marriages. They're like finely painted murals that hide the cracks in the wall. That was us, Alex and me. On the surface, our life was a masterpiece of suburban bliss. 5 years in, and our home was still the go-to spot for weekend barbecues and laughter that echoed into the night. Our friends said we were lucky, but beneath the laughter, there was a void that seemed to grow with each passing day. Alex was. Well, he was perfect, really. The kind of guy who remembered anniversaries and brought home flowers, just because. But somewhere along the line, his job became his new bride, and I, the forgotten wife. Nights became lonelier, and the silence in our home louder than the laughter that once filled it. Then Damian walked back into our lives. Damian, with his devil-may-care smile and eyes that sparkled with mischief. He was Alex's childhood friend, but they were as different as night and day. Where Alex was steady and reliable, Damian was unpredictable and exciting. And God, was I starved for some excitement. It started innocently enough. A coffee here, a casual lunch there. Damian was like a breath of fresh air in the suffocating monotony of my life. With him, I laughed a little louder and felt a little lighter. It wasn't long before those innocent meetings turned into something more. Something secret. Something thrilling. But secrets have a way of creating distance, and the gap between Alex and me grew wider with every lie. I convinced myself that what Alex didn't know wouldn't hurt him. That was until the day he looked me in the eyes, his gaze heavy with unasked questions. "Is everything all right, Lara?" he asked, his voice tinged with a suspicion I'd never heard before. I brushed off his concerns with a laugh, but the rift between us had already formed. Alex's suspicion was the first crack in the carefully constructed facade of our marriage. It was the moment I realized that no matter how hard I tried to juggle my life with Alex and my escapades with Damian, something was bound to give. And deep down, I feared it had already started to crumble. Who knew a heart could shatter so silently, while the world outside carried on, oblivious? I guess I was about to find out. It all started the day I made the choice, the kind of choice you look back on and wonder, what the hell was I thinking? Damian had laid it out plain and simple. It's him or me, Lara. Can't have both. His ultimatum hung between us, charged and challenging. And me? I chose Damian. I chose the thrill over the comfort, the unknown over the familiar. I convinced myself Alex would get over it, that he'd move on and find happiness somewhere else. How wrong I was. Telling Alex was the hardest part. I'd rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head, but when the moment came, words deserted me. His reaction was nothing like I'd expected. No anger, no bargaining. Just a cold, distant farewell that cut deeper than if he'd screamed or thrown things. "I hope he makes you happy," he said, his voice void of emotion, his eyes not meeting mine. That was it. He turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, a mess of guilt and second thoughts. Moving in with Damian felt like stepping into a different universe. The excitement, the danger, it was all there, just like I'd imagined. But as days turned into weeks, Damian's charm began to wear thin. His adventurous spirit I'd fallen for revealed itself as recklessness, his spontaneity as selfishness. Arguments became our new routine, and I found myself missing the stability and warmth of my life with Alex. Meanwhile, Alex transformed. He threw himself into his work, hit the gym, and before I knew it, he was a new man, confident, successful, and in better shape than I'd ever seen him. People noticed. Women noticed. And there I was, watching from the sidelines, a spectator in the life I'd walked away from. The pang of regret was sharp, unexpected. I'd thought I wanted freedom, excitement. But seeing Alex thrive without me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a monumental mistake. I wanted to reach out, to see if there was any chance we could start over. But pride is a tricky thing. It holds you back, tells you it's too late, reminds you of the hurt you caused. So, I stayed silent, nursing my regret in private, while pretending everything was fine with Damian. But inside, I was crumbling. Life has a funny way of showing you exactly what you've lost, only when it's too late to go back. I'd chosen Damian, convinced myself it was what I wanted. But as I lay awake at night, listening to his uneven breaths, I couldn't help but wonder, what if? What if I'd chosen differently? What if I'd stayed? Alex's cold farewell echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the choice I'd made. It was supposed to be a new beginning, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of loss. I guess some choices, once made, leave you with nothing but a heart full of regret and a life filled with what ifs. The night was quieter than usual, The kind of quiet that feels almost heavy, pressing down with anticipation of the storm to come. That's when he showed up, casting a long shadow across our living room floor, the last remnants of daylight clinging to his silhouette like a warning. Damian wasn't home, and I was alone, facing a stranger who knew too much about the life I thought I was cleverly hiding. "You Lara?" His voice was rough, edged with a threat that sent a shiver down my spine. "You need to understand something important," he continued, his eyes scanning the room, never quite settling. "Damian's in deep, and now, so are you." The fear I felt wasn't just for myself, it was for the chaos I'd invited into my life. Damian's past was catching up, and it was dragging me along for the ride. The mysterious figure left as suddenly as he had appeared, leaving behind a chilling promise of danger that was all too real. I considered going to Alex, my heart aching at the thought of how far we'd drifted apart. But the idea of reaching out, only to be turned away, was more than I could bear. Alex had moved on, his life blossoming without me in it. I'd seen him just a week before, laughing and lighthearted with someone new by his side. The contrast between his peaceful new life and the turmoil of mine was stark and painful. The danger escalated quickly after that night. Damian's dealings, once abstract threats, became terrifyingly tangible. We were no longer safe, even in our own home. Every knock at the door, every unknown number, every shadow cast by headlights passing in the night brought a new wave of fear. Damian tried to reassure me, to play down the danger with his characteristic bravado, but the fear in his eyes betrayed his true feelings. We were in over our heads, caught in the crosshairs of a gang with nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Alex's life seemed to flourish even more. Through the grapevine, I heard about his promotions, his trips, his new love. It was as if the universe was underscoring what a colossal mistake I had made. Here I was, living a nightmare, while Alex had found happiness without me. The juxtaposition of our lives couldn't have been more pronounced. As I lay awake at night, listening to the distant sounds of a city that felt more hostile with each passing day, I couldn't help but wonder where it all went wrong. How did I find myself here, in a life so far removed from the safety and love I once knew with Alex? The realization hit hard. I was in too deep, tangled in a web of lies and danger I had never anticipated. The mysterious figure, the threats, the palpable fear, they all served as a grim reminder of the consequences of my choices. As the danger around us grew, so did my isolation. The thought of reaching out to Alex, only to be reminded of the life I could have had, was a pain too great to confront. So, I stayed silent, trapped in a situation that seemed to have no way out. The night sky exploded with the sound of gunfire, a stark contrast to the silence that had blanketed our home just hours before. Our living room, once a sanctuary of warmth and love, had transformed into a battlefield, with shadows dancing on the walls as bullets flew. Amidst the chaos, my heart raced, fear and adrenaline pumping through my veins. This wasn't just any confrontation. It was the culmination of all the dangerous choices I'd made since leaving Alex for Damian. And as the gunfire echoed, I realized how deeply I'd fallen into a world I never belonged in. Damian had always been a mystery, his past a shadowy tale he'd dance around whenever I'd probe. But tonight, that past had burst through our front door, in the form of men whose faces were as cold as their intent. Damian, who I thought stood beside me, was nowhere to be seen as I ducked behind a shattered coffee table, desperately trying to avoid the bullets. The moment of betrayal hit me like a physical blow when I stumbled upon Damian's hastily packed suitcase, hidden in the chaos. His plan was clear: to flee, leaving me to face the wrath of his enemies alone. The man I'd risked everything for was abandoning me, a realization that cut deeper than any knife. In a moment of sheer desperation, with nowhere else to turn, I thought of Alex. Swallowing the lump of pride in my throat, I made my way to the phone, dialing his number with trembling fingers. The phone rang, each tone a beacon of hope, until his voice, strong and unfamiliar, answered. "Alex, I need your help," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper against the storm of emotions raging inside me. There was a pause, the kind that stretches into eternity, filled with all the words left unsaid between us. "Lara," he finally responded, his voice carrying a weight that made my heart sink. "I can't help you, not anymore." His refusal was a sobering splash of reality, a confirmation of the irrevocable damage I'd caused. Alex, the man I'd shared years of my life with, had moved on, building a world that no longer had room for me. His farewell words, though gentle, were a clear marker of the end of our story. With nowhere left to turn, I knew what I had to do. Damian's betrayal had ignited a resolve within me, a determination to confront him and end the toxic cycle I'd become trapped in. I waited, the silence of the house now a grim companion, until Damian finally returned, his expression one of shock as he saw me standing amidst the wreckage of our life together. "I never loved you, Lara," he said, the words cold and devoid of remorse. "You were just a means to an end." His confession was a final blow, the truth behind our relationship laid bare in the harshest light. The realization that I was nothing more than a pawn in Damian's game was the catalyst I needed to break free from the illusion I'd been living. With a heart heavy with betrayal but a spirit ignited by the will to survive, I faced Damian, ready to reclaim my life from the ruins. This showdown, though born from violence and betrayal, marked the beginning of my journey towards redemption, a path I knew would be walked alone. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. In a life that once felt like it was written in the stars, I found myself now racing against a fate I never signed up for. The night I discovered Damian's ultimate betrayal marked the beginning of the end. "It's all set up, Lara. You take the fall, and I walk away clean," his words echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. He'd planned everything with meticulous care, framing me for his myriad of crimes. The trap was sprung, and I was the prey, ensnared and desperate. Escape was my only option. Heart pounding, I fled into the night, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a life I thought I wanted. The realization hit me hard. I was now a fugitive, haunted by the law on one side and Damian's dark world on the other. Every shadow seemed to whisper threats, every stranger's glance a potential capture. My existence became a series of narrow escapes and hideouts, a constant look over my shoulder. The downward spiral was swift and merciless. Friends turned their backs, doors closed in my face, and my name became synonymous with betrayal and deceit. The community I once called home now looked at me with suspicion and scorn. I was an outcast, my reputation in ruins, all because I made the mistake of trusting a man who saw me as nothing more than a pawn in his dangerous game. But then, amidst the darkness, a flicker of light. An old friend, Jenna, offered me shelter, no questions asked. She didn't know the full extent of my situation, and I didn't dare burden her with the truth. Her kindness was a balm to my wounded soul, a reminder that not all was lost. In the quiet of her spare room, a plan began to take shape. Fueled by the burning need for justice and revenge, I vowed to bring Damian down, to expose his crimes and clear my name. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing left to lose as a powerful motivator. Gathering evidence against Damian required a stealth and cunning I never knew I possessed. Every move was calculated, every step fraught with risk. But with each piece of incriminating evidence I secured, the more determined I became. Damian had underestimated me, a mistake that would cost him dearly. As I pieced together the puzzle of Damian's criminal empire, the scope of his treachery became clear. He'd woven a web of lies and deceit that spanned years, ensnaring the innocent and guilty alike. But he'd left a trail, and I followed it relentlessly, determined to bring the truth to light. The plan was simple yet audacious. I would confront Damian, armed with the evidence of his crimes, and force his hand. It was a gamble, but I had nothing left to lose. The confrontation was inevitable, a showdown between truth and lies. And so, under the cover of darkness, I made my move. Damian was surprised to see me, confident in his belief that I was already broken, a fugitive running scared. But the tables were turned. As I laid out the evidence before him, his arrogance faltered, replaced by the dawning realization that his empire was about to crumble. "I never loved you, Lara. You were just a means to an end." Damian's confession was a final knife to the heart, but it no longer had the power to hurt me. I had grown beyond the woman who fell for his lies. My resolve was unshaken, my path clear. The confrontation was the culmination of my journey from victim to victor. Damian's confession, while painful, was the catalyst for my final act of defiance. With the evidence in hand, I left Damian to his fate, stepping out of the shadows and into the light. My name would be cleared, my reputation restored. It was a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Hope for justice, hope for redemption, and hope for a new beginning, forged from the ashes of betrayal and pain. The moment I decided to take Damian down, I knew it was going to be a one-way ticket to either my salvation or my undoing. There's something about hitting rock bottom that frees you. When you've lost everything, there's nothing left to fear. So, I went all in, staking the remnants of my shattered life on a last-ditch effort to bring Damian to justice. Gathering evidence against Damian was like trying to hold water in my hands, slippery and dangerous. I moved through the shadows of our once shared life, sifting through documents, emails, anything that could tie him to his crimes. Every step was a gamble, dodging the authorities who saw me as an accomplice and Damian's underworld contacts who saw me as a liability. Just one more piece, I'd whisper to myself, my determination a thin shield against the fear. The confrontation was inevitable. I found Damian at our old haunt, a place that once symbolized our love but now reeked of betrayal. Damian, I began, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I know about everything. The scams, the money laundering, all of it. I laid out the evidence before him, a mosaic of his guilt. His reaction was a blend of shock, anger, and, finally, a twisted kind of respect. Lara, you were always smarter than I gave you credit for, he sneered, his charm dissolved into the air between us. The showdown that followed was nothing short of cinematic. Damian, cornered and desperate, lashed out. The man I once loved aimed to kill me, but fate, or perhaps the remnants of my once good karma, intervened. The authorities, alerted by an anonymous tip, one I'd managed to send just in time, burst in. Damian was apprehended, his reign of terror ending with the click of handcuffs around his wrists. But this victory, sweet as it was, came at a cost too great. My name was cleared, but the scars of my journey, visible and invisible, marked me. The community that once embraced me now whispered behind closed doors, their looks a mix of pity and disdain. I was free but not liberated, vindicated but not victorious. In a final bid for some semblance of my old life, I sought out Alex. His rejection was the final blow, a sobering confirmation of the irreversible damage my choices had caused. Lara, there's nothing left for us here. You need to move on, he said, his voice devoid of the warmth I yearned for. And just like that, the last thread connecting me to my past, to the woman I once was, snapped. As I walked away from Alex, the realization settled in. This wasn't just the end of my story with Damian. It was the closing of a chapter I could never revisit. My victory over Damian was Pyrrhic at best. In defeating him, I'd lost myself and any chance of the life I once dreamed of with Alex. Life, I've learned, is a series of choices, each with its own consequences. Some choices, like mine, leave you standing in the ruins of what could have been, holding on to the bitter truth that some things, once broken, can never be made whole again. In a dingy motel room that's seen better days, I'm sitting cross-legged on the bed that squeaks at the slightest movement, staring at the peeling wallpaper. It's a far cry from the life I once knew, filled with love, laughter, and security. Now, it's just me, my regrets, and a suitcase full of nothing but a new identity and a few dollars to my name. It's funny, you know, how in movies the protagonist always finds a way to bounce back, stronger and wiser. But this isn't a movie. It's my life. And I'm not bouncing back. I'm barely clinging on. Leaving town seemed like the only viable option after everything that went down. I thought I could outrun my past, but it turns out, your mistakes have a way of catching up to you, no matter how fast you run. Damian's associates, the ones I thought were locked away with him, are still out there, and they've got a score to settle. With me. I've become an expert at looking over my shoulder, blending into crowds, becoming a face you glance at but never really see. My new identity is a shield, albeit a flimsy one, against a world I no longer understand. Gone are the days of being Lara, the wife, the lover, the betrayer. Now, I'm just Jane Doe, a nobody trying to survive. But survival comes at a cost. Loneliness wraps around me like a second skin, suffocating and relentless. I miss the connection, the warmth of being known and loved. But those are luxuries I forfeited the day I walked out on Alex, the day I chose Damian and set off this chain of events. Then, one day, as I'm sipping coffee in a crowded cafe, trying to lose myself in the hum of conversation and the clatter of dishes, I spot a familiar face. It's someone from my old life, a reminder of everything I've lost. Panic sets in. Does he recognize me? Will he expose me? But he walks past, oblivious to my presence, and I'm left to ponder my existence. It's clear now. I can never truly escape. My choices have woven a web around me, tight and suffocating. So, I make a decision. No more running. It's time to face the music, to confront the last of Damian's associates. If I'm going down fighting. The final showdown is nothing like I imagined. It's not glamorous or heroic. It's dirty, it's gritty, and it's terrifying. But when it's over, I'm still standing. Bruised, bloodied, but alive. As I walk away from the wreckage of my past, I can't help but reflect on the journey that brought me here. I've lost everything in my quest for freedom, for excitement, for something more. And now, I'm left with nothing but memories of a life I once had and the harsh reality of the consequences of my actions. The road ahead is uncertain, shadowed with the knowledge that I can never fully outrun my past. But maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for redemption, for a new beginning, even if it's not the one I envisioned. Maybe this time, I'll get it right. In the twilight of my former life, I learned the hard way that some shadows, once cast, stretch out indefinitely, tainting every step forward with echoes of the past. I thought I'd seen it all, but life, as I'd come to know, had a peculiar knack for proving me wrong. The day I walked into what I later realized was an ambush set by remnants of Damian's shattered world, my heart raced not with fear, but with an almost resigned anticipation. Bullets flew, whispers of death grazing my skin, yet I emerged, once more, unscathed but not untouched. The realization that my life would forever be ensnared in this unending cycle of flight and fight settled heavy on my soul. Nights grew longer, each shadow a specter, each noise a threat. I contemplated surrender, a trade of my freedom for a semblance of peace. Could I turn myself in, offer up the secrets of Damian's network in exchange for protection? The thought circled my mind, a vulture over its dying prey. Yet, the fear of retribution, both from the law and the remnants of Damian's empire, shackled my resolve. Isolation became my sanctuary and my prison. Cut off from the world, my companions were now the ghosts of my decisions, haunting the crevices of my mind. It was in this solitude that I stumbled upon a sliver of redemption, a cache of information potent enough to dismantle what was left of Damian's criminal web. The decision to act on this knowledge was a gamble with the highest stakes, my life. Yet, what did I have left to lose? My existence was already a fugitive's dance on the edge of a blade. With nothing but shadows for company, I chose action over inaction, igniting the fuse that would eventually collapse Damian's remaining empire. I relayed the information to the authorities through layers of anonymity, a ghost passing judgment on the damned. The network crumbled, but my role remained shrouded in silence. No accolades, no relief, my status unchanged, my soul unburdened yet heavy with loss. Before vanishing into the ether, I penned a final message to Alex. Words of love and regret, a farewell unsent and unheard, disappeared into the void along with me. My legacy, a cautionary whisper against the backdrop of chaos I'd left in my wake. As I stepped away from everything and everyone I'd ever known, I didn't look back. My story, a testament to the corrosive power of betrayal and revenge, was complete. The end of my journey was as enigmatic as its beginning, shrouded in mystery, leaving behind questions unanswered, a life unlived. In the end, I was but a wraith, fading into the annals of tales best forgotten, my final act of defiance against a fate too cruel. My disappearance was my last stand, a silent scream into the abyss, leaving behind a world forever changed in my